Welcome again. This is Bug Eater 64, and we're going to continue our October Halloween adventures in X-Plane 11. Today we're flying the new X-Aviation Mitsubishi MU-2 update for X-Plane 11, version 1.8, and we're going to be flying it in X-Plane 11.10 Bravo 4, which is beta. And we're going to be flying from San Diego to John Wayne International. Short flight, 65 miles. And we'll see how it goes. The old Mitsubishi had a real problem when we got into X-Plane 11. It would fly, but once you got the engines started, this thing wanted to run on the road like a raped ape. I mean, it was doing basically takeoff speed while you're trying to taxi, and you could not control it. So we're going to see, as we get the engine started up, if that is going to be fixed in this update. Now, they are in the process of working on a new version of the Mitsubishi MU-2. It's going to come later. This was got some updates to make it look better, and some other changes as far as making the gauges maybe a little crisper. Exterior's a little crisper, more dynamic, but I wanted to find out. This is my first flight with this airplane in Bravo 4, and I wanted to find out if it was going to fix our initial real problem that made the aircraft basically unflyable in X-Plane 11, which is a shame because it's a really, really nice airplane. High wing, twin turboprop, very fast. This thing cruises at like 260 knots. You know, and it will fly okay, excuse me there, but you have to respect it. So we're going to do this little flight and see what happens. Got the engine started. And this is the update, but I'm using my livery that I haven't updated yet, but I'm going to, because this color combination looks great in the Hawaiian Islands. I'm not sure it fits California, Southern California too well. So we're going to be making some changes, but overall, this is the Mitsubishi MU-2. And trying to click the caution light off, and unfortunately I couldn't because I was building this video for you from a replay, because I wanted to show you what we're dealing with this airplane. Now I've got the throttles as far back as I can get them, and I've got my conditioners and prop RPM as far back as it will go without shutting the engine off. And as you can hear, the RPMs are fairly high. There you go, you can see what they look like. But we're going to give it a shot here. Now the landing is going to be really interesting because one thing, when I downloaded the new one, I failed to update my settings for my flight gear. So the reversers are not set up. And with this airplane, reversers can be very important because to land, you've got to land at a pretty high speed. This plane was built for high speed.
Light and variable, visibility more than 10. Sky clear. Temperature
Okay.
25.
So we've got our ATIS information.
Altimeter 2989. Arriving runway 27.
Departing runway 27. And that's where we're going to take off from. Runway 27. And I don't expect any problems with the aircraft following flight plan on our Garmin 530. That's always worked well. Like I said, the only issue we ever had with this was the taxi speeds and trying to slow it down once we get to where we're going. It doesn't like to slow down. Which can be a real issue on landing and just taxiing. There we go. Brakes off, and apparently, yeah, I've got to lay on the brakes a lot just to keep it under control on the ground. We got the same issue we've had with the original. And a problem we didn't have in X-Plane 10, which this plane was designed for. So, they did some upgrades and they've done some changes that look good. And just some minor changes in the systems to improve things, but they did not address, apparently, the problem we really have, and that is the throttles and the engines at idle running at about 1600 RPM. You can't slow it down, but we can, you know, if you lay on the brakes and you feather the brakes, you can get it to where you want to go. But if you're running a virtual airline, it makes it extremely difficult to have a positive flight, because when you're laying on the brakes that much, it has a tendency of upsetting the passengers. So we had some throttle for takeoff speed. I did not change the propeller RPM or mixtures at all. They're still sitting at the lowest setting they can without turning the engines off. And this thing is, here we are at about 120. Gear up. Flaps coming up. And we're leaving San Diego in a hurry. We're already at about 160 knots. Very responsive airplane. You can almost fly it like a fighter, as responsive as it is to control. It does follow a flight plan very well. So as we cross San Diego Bay, gonna head out to the ocean a little bit, and then we'll turn in to head for Santa Ana, John Wayne. And it's a beautiful day in Southern California. Just about lunchtime. can see the conditioners there, all the way back. And we're at about 90% on the throttles. And climbing at about 190 knots. Altitude was set for 5,000 feet, so as soon as we get to 5,000 feet, it should level off, and then she's gonna take off. It should prove. Right now, we're at about 250 knots on our basically our approach to the airport. So we've had an uneventful flight, like I said, and we are now here, and as you can see, we're doing over about 220, 230 knots. A little bit of a lag here in the sim, but yeah. That's John Wayne that we're just circling around, and we've got to lose some altitude and try to lose some speed. Good luck with that. I have found that what we can do is we can start. Basically, I would guess we need to start probably 10 or 15 miles away to try to slow down this airplane. And the way to do that is to make circles or get down to a speed we can start putting flaps down as well as the gear, which with this airplane is, you know, a little more forgiving than other aircraft because it is built for speed. It has higher speed takeoff and higher speed landing. So I can put gear down like at 150 knots and, you know, without damaging it. I can start putting, you know, the first degree of flaps at about the same speed, really. So the hard part is getting it from, you know, the 250, 260 knots down to that 150. In X-Plane 10, I used to land this plane at about 110, 115 knots. And with reversers, it, you know, could make a very smooth landing and stop without any issues whatsoever. And it would taxi nicely to the ramp. That's what I want to do with this in X-Plane 11. Only so far it ain't happening, because right now, as you can see, we were doing about 255, 260 knots. And I'm getting down to about 1,500 feet so I can make my approach to the runway. We'll see how things go. I've got my RPM and conditioners all the way back as far as they'll go. I have my throttles back as far as they'll go, and we're just not slowing down. still using the autopilot to lose my altitude and basically get us on our approach vector. So let us get prepared and see how this goes. Still under autopilot control. And we are finally slowing down. Because of this turn, we're actually slowing down. Not much, not fast, but we're at about 200 knots right now. So landing gear will be coming down here in a second, or 2 or 3. Like I said, I can pull it down at a much higher speed than without damage. Aircraft is mine. And I'd like to slow it down some more. Aren't you glad you're not a passenger? Yeehaw. Gear coming down. Still not slowing down. All right. I thought I'd try this, but there was no way that I was going to get this plane stopped. But we gave it the old college try. Cut the grass for the grounds crew. I hope they appreciated it. But we didn't want to run into these other airplanes, so we go ahead and take back off. Add a little throttle just to so we can avoid everything and not hit the ground. And since that did slow us down, we're not going to try not to get any real speed up. So, with that said, we shall leave the gear down That'll help slow us down. And then we're going to give it some flaps. So we got it slowed down enough now, about 150 knots, so we can give the first degree of flaps without doing any damage. So they're down. And we're going to try and get the speed down to about 115. 115, 120. If I can get it on the runway that way, I can get it stopped. Right now we're flying at about 100 and probably about 130. So that's not bad. We'll be able to get that slowed down a little bit more before we touch down. So we're in good shape now. That's why I say, if I start about 15 miles away with the circles and S-turns, I can probably get this down to a speed where I can land it. And then of course, once I initiate the reversers, we got no issues. But unfortunately, I don't have the reversers configured yet, so we're going to have to land this without them and just depend on our brakes. That's why I have to have the slower speed. So, here we go for our second attempt. So as the great flyers always say, hold on to your butts, because we're going in. One way or to other. We've got the second degree of flaps in. And we can put in the last degree. Full flaps. That should get us down to about 110, 115. So here we go. Nice smooth landing. We'll apply brakes. So the airplane flies fine. It's a lot of fun to fly because it's so responsive. Speed is the issue. And the difficulty in trying to control it. See, I take the brake off, I've got everything set to minimums, and this thing takes off like a rape tape. So you have to stay on the brakes constantly feathering them to get it to taxi. And that's really no good. Really no good at all. So, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion, of course, is this airplane ready for prime time in X-Plane 11? My answer? No. Not until they fix this issue. Is it fun to fly? Yes. Will it be a true addition to anybody's hangar in X-Plane 11? Yes, eventually, but not yet. Hopefully when they bring out version, let's say 2.0, which is coming unknown date, but it's something they are working on right now. All these issues will be taken care of. What they're waiting for is for basically, I think, X-Plane's final version per se, when we're through with the beta updates. And once they get it, what they consider a stable version, which 11.5 was, this may be an issue just with the 11.10 betas. Don't know. Only time will tell. If anybody who watches this flies X-Plane 11.5 and flies this airplane, please let me know how it works in 11.5. So, there you go. We're down safe. We're at John Wayne International, Santa Ana, California. It's a beautiful day. And we're going to get ready and put our lady to bed. So, turn off our nav lights, beacons, lights are off, and turn off ignitions. Conditioners all the way off. Fuel pumps off. And inverter, generators, avionics, and battery off. Our lady is sleeps. And that is the Mitsubishi MU-2 from X-Aviation 1.8 update. So, I certainly hope you enjoyed the flight as much as I had fun bringing it to you. And until next time, as always, safe flying.